If you enjoyed today's video, please consider subscribing to the channel. When you do, make sure you hit the notification bell. That means that you will be informed of when a new video has been released. If you would like to take that support one step further, you can do that via Patreon, which is an optional monthly service. You can donate money towards the channel, or you can go over to Ko-fi.com, and for the price of a coffee you can help donate towards the channel as well. Links for all of those will be in the description of the video, and without further ado, enjoy the video.
Alright, we're live.
Cool, let's do this. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happen to be listening to another episode of the Non-League Nosh. I am James, and as always, I'm joined by my colleague and good friend Adam. How are you doing this evening, sir? You well?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Not too bad at all.
Good man, good man. It's been a lot of crazy changes in the world, hasn't there, recently? Last couple of days in particular. How are you finding the new rules and adjustments, etc.? Have you enjoyed it?
Do you know what? It's been pretty funny. I went out for a bit of a walk the other day, and randomly there was a man on our local recreation ground with 2 golf balls and a wedge, trying to slap some balls as far as he could because he's been told he can now play golf. He'd taken his wife with him to sort of watch the proceedings happen. He stood there for ages lining this first shot up. He'd even taken a tee with him, bless him. Swung, and I shit you not, it bobbled about 6 yards. I was like, God, you're the hero that every woman needs in her life. So yeah, seeing lots of funny things, really, like, you know, there's kids playing football in twos again and stuff like that. So the world is returning to a gradual, like, normal, but it feels weird to see it.
Yeah, especially considering how long it's been. It's yeah, interesting times. But
and life been like for you?
Sorry?
What's life been like for you? Let's not forget yourself.
Oh, you know me, just football manager and looking after the little one. That's pretty much all my life is nowadays. There's not really an awful lot to kind of say, really, unless you want to know about my football manager exploits. I don't really think it's podcast worthy, but
failure, absolute failure.
Yeah, I don't really do an awful lot, to be fair. There's not really an awful lot going on with my life, other than obviously the podcast. That is the be all and end all of my life.
The podcast and the Middlesbrough save.
Yes, yeah, exactly it. But as always, now we are not alone on these podcasts, Adams. We are joined by yet another fantastic guest. It is ex-Leeds, and I'm going to go through the list of loans here: Hull, Blackpool, Sunderland, Doncaster, Barnsley, and then we've got Darlington, Hereford, Bury, Hales Owen, and the list goes on and on. Midfielder Simon Johnson. How are you doing, Simon? You well?
I'm very good. That list makes me sound absolutely awful. But, no, I'm okay. I'm good, thank you. I didn't even realise how many clubs I'd actually represented. Jesus Christ.
Well, there was a few more on there, but I was starting to lose breath, so I thought I'd stop.
we just assumed when we booked you just liked collecting tracksuits, so we thought you'd be interesting to chat to.
That's one way of looking at it, yeah.
How are you, Simon? You doing all right at the moment?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm not too bad. Obviously it's not the ideal situation to be in, but
yeah,
you know, we've just got to roll with the punch and just deal with it as best we can, you know.
Yeah. I mean, how are you finding things, like, you know, in terms of what you're up to nowadays? Is it something that are you still able to do much from home, or are you kind of restricted very much now? You know, what's life looking like for you, just very briefly?
I mean, normally I would be going out scouting for the academy, but obviously that's a no-go at the moment. So I'm having to try and do all my sort of marketing over social media platforms. So I can still do my bits from home, so it's not too bad.
Good stuff. Now, what we always do on the podcast, I don't know if you've done your research prior to coming on, but we always do some quick-fire questions just to begin with, so that our audience can get to know you a little bit better, and then we get into the meat and bones later on through. So, are you ready?
That's no problem. One second, is there a time scale? I've got to answer them like quick.
Well, no. They're multiple. They're choices one, so you'll pick either or.
Oh, okay, no problem.
So you
That
It's not mastermind yet, mate.
no.
That would be so funny.
I thought you was putting me on a 3-second time scale, lads.
No, put the pressure on before we even get going.
Adam, we should implement that.
It is a good idea. Although
should do
I
that.
think
We
the
should do it.
nervousness would not like it.
So, Chinese or Indian?
Oh, you can't start off with that.
Got to make it hard to begin with.
I told you I'd need more. I'm gonna go Indian.
Ooh.
So it's against the grain for us.
Yeah.
Are you Chinese guys?
Yeah.
We are.
Also, I was going to go with Chinese as well. Do you know what? That's why I told you I need time. I was going to change it. I'm going to stick with it.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Good man. You've redeemed yourself.
Easy one, that. Easy.
Favorite biscuit to dunk?
Ooh. To dunk. This isn't my favourite biscuit overall, but to dunk, I'm going to say the little fruit shortcake ones.
Yes.
Oh, they're unbelievable biscuits. No one said this so far.
Do you know what? I'm the only one in the household that likes them, so I always stock up on them, and I know nobody's going to eat them. So it's decent.
100%. It's ginger nut. It's fruit cake. It's just they're my go-to ones. Right. Favorite alcoholic drink?
Oh, I've just had a sip of it. Rum and Red Bull.
Wow, what a combo!
Have you never tried that?
No.
Oh, give it a whack. A bit of spiced rum and some Red Bull. Decent. You'll enjoy that.
When all this is over, Adam, we'll have to get on that.
The only way I've done that, I've had it as like a Jaeger bomb version, but with
it's similar to that. To be fair, it is similar.
Yeah, I haven't had a diluted version. I've just had the kind that just gets you, well, messed up.
I'd suggest just having a little tipple indoors first. Don't be doing it like at a family function or anything like that straight away.
Being in a controlled environment first, yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. just see how it goes.
Especially with you, Adam. That's probably a fair shout, to be honest. Instagram or Twitter?
Oh, I think I'm a bit of an Insta guy now. You know. Yeah, more Instagram now. Yeah, it used to be Twitter, but yeah, I'm all over Insta at the moment.
There you go, Adam. You're slowly getting into Instagram now, aren't you?
I'm learning for the purpose of this channel. Today I put together my first full-on story, but I spent over an hour and a half designing it.
Jesus, man.
Today. But if you look at it, which I know you haven't yet, which is despicable, it's pretty fucking.
I've got a 5-month-old to look after. I haven't got time to be looking at your stories, mate.
Well,
bit selfish of him, isn't it?
It's all about you as well, Simon.
Favorite type of music? What are you into?
Oh gosh, I would probably say old school R&B. I can't deal with all this new stuff. It all sounds the same, but the old school stuff I enjoy. Yeah.
Well, that's a big staple amongst the ex-pros, isn't it? Like loads of the ex-pros say old school R&B.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a popular one. But to be honest, now music nowadays, and this is going to make me sound really old, but music nowadays is just what we had 10 years ago, but remixed, and it's just a bit of a beat on it. That's all it is. There's nothing new, like proper new nowadays, in my opinion. Anyway.
I agree. Definitely agree with that.
That made me sound so old. I sound like my father there. Favorite box set?
Friends.
Yeah, it's a classic. Absolute classic. Favorite film?
Ooh. Not many people will know this one, I don't think. It's years and years old, but it's a film called Primal Fear with Richard Gere and Ed Norton in. Is it Edward Norton?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you seen that, guys? You want to see
I'm not familiar with that. No.
Seen it, but we'll
have a watch of that. You'll enjoy that. Proper film, that is.
Okay, Adam, make a note.
Yeah.
Cats or dogs?
Well, we've got a dog at the moment, so I'm going to have to say dog.
Yeah.
A dog. Yeah.
probably say dogs is about 90% on this podcast.
I think cats are the joke of the podcast, if anything. To be honest.
Yes, they are, but we won't go into that. Other than football, what's your favourite sport?
Oh, I don't really take an interest in much, you know. Boxing.
Yeah.
Boxing. Yeah.
I've got really into boxing.
I'm a casual, but I've got more because the events are getting bigger and bigger, aren't they? So I've started enjoying it a lot more recently. So yeah, I'll go with boxing.
That's fair comment. Adam, I'm still waiting for the day for somebody to say American football. It's not happened, but it will happen. Eventually, we will get someone who likes American football on the show.
I hope so.
FIFA or FM?
I'm going to go FIFA because I only like the old school one, Champ Manager. I don't play Football Manager anymore. It's the old one, Champ Manager. You could just you could get through a season in like an hour and a half. But this one, you've got to do all transfers and make sure your players are fit and all that, ain't you? I'm not into that.
Did you play the 0102 Classic?
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah,
that was the one.
Yeah,
just signing yourself
on there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm so tempted to say something.
Go on.
Well, we've lined up a guest today, who's all confirmed. So, like, we can do an early reveal, I think, James. But yeah, we've got Cherno Samba coming on at the end of the month. And,
oh, what a baller on there!
Yeah, I'm so excited. I can hardly. Yeah,
we're going to have to refrain from not talking about Football Manager for the entirety of that one. We are going to have to somehow do that.
I know, but yeah, that'll be interesting.
There you go. So let's move on to some other ones. What football team do you support?
I'm split between. People keep asking me to choose, and I can't do it. So I support Leeds and West Brom.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
What's the reason behind that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, obviously, I was born and bred West Brom, and I've always followed them since I can remember. And then obviously Leeds was the club that gave me my dream. So yeah, I can't not support them. You know.
No, that's fair enough. Favorite player growing up?
Gaza.
He's a great answer. We've had that a couple of times on here. It's easy to understand why. There's not many characters like him in the game anymore, are there?
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, I initially started. I was in midfield initially, centre mid. So I used to try and sort of take bits out of his game. He was unreal. I loved him.
Yeah. That's not hard to see why, to be fair. Best player you've seen live?
Thierry Henry.
Oh, good shout.
Yeah.
Good shout. He changed the Premier League, let's face it.
100%.
It was a joke.
There we go. I like some of those, Adam.
Yeah.
Some good answers in there. Good answers. Yeah. You're going to have to come up with a few yourself for future ones, you know.
Yeah, well, we could see some questions chucked that one for Sunday because you can't make it. So
yeah, well, there you go. Add a few more into there for me. That'd be good. But no, nice one. I like those answers, Simon. There's some good answers in there. The Thierry Henry one in particular. So yeah, hard to argue with that. Right, let's get into then some of the main talking points we wanted to go through. Obviously, football world has just been completely turned upside down by, obviously, we know the main event that's going on at the moment. Everyone's talking about it. There's been quite a few updates, hasn't there, Adam, recently?
I feel like since we were last on here, the whole football hemisphere has completely changed.
Yeah, it looks like now, with the recent changes to what the government has said, that football appears to be getting some sort of green light to returning, even though we're still nowhere near out of the, out of the wars on this one at all. I'd love to get your thoughts, Simon, just first of all on the whole situation with, particularly from a non-league perspective, because that is where we specialise in. What do you make of the decision to completely null and void non-league, whilst we are still seeing the fact that the EFL is continuing to try and get a return date? What do you make of it all?
It's a difficult one because the decision comes down to, for me, in my opinion, the financial element, and the money in non-league it's just, you can't compare it to that of the Football League and Premier League, you know. So it was an easy decision for them to make. But you know, for the I mean, I'm local to Hull Zone. They was absolutely flying, and it's a shame that clubs like that are not going to reap the rewards. You know, it's hard for them to take. But I suppose everybody's in the same boat where non-league's concerned, and you know, I think Hull Zone was in the FA Trophy final as well. So it's for clubs like that have done really well. It must be a bitter pill to take, you know. But it's just one of them things. Nobody can do anything about it, really.
Well, I mean, the big kind of talking point that we always have on the show is that if the football season is still going to go ahead from Premier League, Football League, etc., do we feel that the decision to null and void is the right one? Because let's say from a financial perspective that it can't be finished on the pitch. Should there be some, you know, should they go through the points per game aspect, or should we kind of, you know, see how things are? You know, what would you ideally have done to settle it? What would be the fairest way in your opinion, or do you think they have made the right call from a non-league to just simply null and void?
It's a difficult one because when you look at it, are we taking into consideration the Premier League now as well, or we're still on just non-league?
I suppose really from a non-league perspective at this point. I
just don't know. I've been looking at trying to solve this problem. Believe me, because I've got enough time on my hands. But I just can't see. I just can't see how it could have continued, and I can't see how the Premier League's going to continue. Or, you know, for me, it was the right decision. And I asked people this question: if there weren't so much money involved in the higher leagues, that decision would have been made a long time ago. Also, so for me, it was the right decision. For sure.
So you know, talking about the higher leagues, what do you make of the fact that they are trying to get football kick-started again? I honestly think it's a joke. From personally talking about it, I can't understand the logic behind it. I know they're talking about trying to get a bit of a feel-good factor going for the country again, but as much as I love football, watching 22 blokes kick a football around is not going to make me feel much better about what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, like I said, if there weren't so much money involved, the decision would have been made a long time ago. And I just think, just look at the bigger picture. Just look at people are going to lose out on a bit of dough, but Jesus Christ, just, you know, people's lives are at stake. What's more important? You know, it's an easy answer for me. What's more important, money or people's lives?
Did you look at the news last night around it? So, like, one of the things that came out was that that it had been suggested, I think, via the Premier League, that when you tackle, you have to turn your face away. Now, right?
Is that serious?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was serious.
Now, I think that genuinely shows that it does come back to money and forcing a sport than looking after people. I don't know about you, but I don't know how safe it would have been at a pro level, having played at the pace of pro level. Like, how safe is it to chuck a tackle in and not look?
To be honest, I used to do that all the time anyway. To be honest, that's the first I've heard that. I think that's disgusting, because it like you say, it just shows that they're looking for any way to try and get these games played, you know, so nobody loses out. But
yeah,
no, I'm not having that. I'm not having that one bit.
I mean, the last episode we spoke about the other rule change that had been put in, is being circulated, which is 5 substitutes, and it seems like a more ridiculous rule now seems to be falling every few days. I was pretty furious about the 5 substitutes thing, because I think it takes the whole. I don't even think it makes the whole competition legitimate anymore, because you're not even playing under the same rule set. There's 3 substitutes. There pretty much always has been. That there's a competitive reason for that, and it changes the way the game is played.
It's the reduction in minutes as well, isn't it? If they go down to a 75-minute game,
75 or 78 minute or something, I think they were.
Yeah, if they go down to that, I'm not being funny, but a lot of what Norwich did, and I'm going to use them as an example because they are my team, but a lot of what Norwich did last season is that they practiced their fitness and their endurance levels so hard that they broke teams down in the final 15 minutes of matches. I guarantee we would not have finished in the top 6 if we couldn't have played the full 90 minutes, because we wore teams down into the ground and then we pounced and scored so many last-minute winners. You can't have 3/4 of a season played under 90 minutes and then have the rest of it played under 75 minutes just because you want to finish a season. It's just getting more and more far-fetched.
So, like Ipswich last season would have got promoted if they wouldn't have had the last 15. Look at the results they had turned around in the last 15. So it does go to show that that would genuinely be a joke.
No, they can't do that, surely. Like you say, people, different managers who have different approaches will strategise. Do you know what I mean? And you know, your Norwiches and that you do have clubs that will absolutely hammer their fitness, or you'll have clubs that will probably do more explosive training and try and win a game in the first half or the first 60 minutes, and then just sort of sit back. You know,
much now. Like that, I see that so commonly.
Yeah.
Like teams try and absolutely bash the door down for 20 minutes, then sit deep.
Yeah. So I can't see how that would work. I don't think clubs would go for that at all.
I sincerely hope not.
Well, like you look at how desperate they are, and I think I don't know why, but it seems to be kind of led on the fact that a lot of European leagues are now looking to restart. That seems to be the main reason why they just don't want to be falling behind other countries, do they? And the money aspect. There can't be any other reason why you would want to restart it again.
Well, like there are leagues that are tested. I think Estonia, they tested all of their professional players, referees, and 10 managers got tested. 350 tests, they all came back negative. So in their Premier League is ready to go. The English Premier League's on a slightly different scale, but I think when they're starting to see things like that happen, I do wonder if the complacency of, well, if they can do it, why can't we?
It just, I keep reiterating on a lot of these shows that we talk about, Adam. You can't give Premier League football players and staff tests just to complete a 90-minute match when you can't even get your own NHS and health workers and people on the front line, when you can't get them tested.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't turn around and start chucking tests at football players just because you want a game of football to be completed. As much as I love it and I want football to return as quickly as possible, like Simon said, the bigger picture is, what's more important? What's more important?
Like tests are taking, like as of last week, some tests were taking up to 10 days to come back in the UK. The UK's capacity for testing had gone wrong and they were sending tests to America, but the Premier League think that they can prioritise their players and get them virtually same-day results or next-day results to get a game of football on. Like, it's morally, like we're way away. We started the whole conversation 25 episodes or so ago about how tragic it was that it was not null and void. We're moving on to the fact that we've gone a little bit morally corrupt in trying to get us back up and running.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally agree.
Over time, we're watching that conversation evolve and the different nuances in it, and we're having really good conversation about it. But you get to the point where you're asking bigger questions than just what does it mean for football.
I mean, from your perspective, Simon, are you kind of in touch with anybody who's like, still in the game at the moment? Are they talking to you about the situation and what their kind of thoughts on it? Obviously, I know you don't have to reveal names or whatever, but are you hearing those kind of conversations? And if so, what are people generally saying about the fact that they are trying to get it restarted?
Yeah, to be honest, I've spoken to a couple of players, but nobody's mentioned it. Nobody. Right. I think all the ones that I've spoken to are in the mindset that the season's finished.
Really?
So, yeah. So I'm not sure. I can't answer properly on that, but because it hasn't been mentioned, I think they're just away with the season now.
Do you know what you say? You can't answer it properly, but that's pretty telling in itself.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If that's the mindset of the people involved within the game at some level, that's pretty interesting.
But I mean, I don't know if you've seen this, Adam, but the latest statement that's come out, it was released probably maybe about half an hour or so ago. Darren McAntony, obviously the Peterborough chairman, they have signed a joint statement on behalf of quite a few clubs from League One saying they're wanting to complete the remaining fixtures.
Wow.
So it's on behalf of Peterborough, Oxford, Sunderland, Fleetwood, Portsmouth, and wait for it, Ipswich.
Are you joking?
No, Ipswich want to complete the season.
Orlando wants to prove that he's completely failed.
So
Write it off, lad.
no, the statement is saying we have no desire for voiding the season, points per game scenarios, or letting a computer decide our footballing fate. For our fans and staff and the integrity of sport, we are looking forward to completing our pending fixture list under guidance from the EFL at a time it is deemed safe to do so. And then again, Fleetwood's
the integrity of sport, but a couple of the clubs in there would actually benefit from forgetting this season because there's been underperformance in there.
Well, I mean, that's the latest development on it. We've now got another statement where it looks as if League One are now, select group of League One clubs are now not happy.
That's clubs that are throughout the table as well.
Yeah, it's the thing. It's not just clubs who are pushing for promotion. Let's face it. So interesting. Really is interesting. I don't really know
how he forced that conversation though.
Sorry?
I'd love to know how Peterborough forced that conversation forward.
Well, I mean, he won't shut up talking about it on Twitter, will he? So he's probably. I can understand why. Obviously, his club are in that promotion hunt. He doesn't want the season to finish. That's absolutely fair enough. But where I don't know, where do you draw a line? It's a difficult one, isn't it? But I'd love to know what you guys think. If you are new to the conversation here on the non-league Nosh, let us know in the comment section. How would you finish the season? What is the right way to do it? I'd love to know your thoughts. Let us know. Simon, let's talk about your career in the game. We're fascinated to find out about it. Let's go right back to the very beginning, before you were in academy football. Kind of where did it all start for you before the move to Leeds, and what kind of level were you playing at when you were spotted and recognised?
I was just playing your local grassroots football on a Sunday. I've been with the same club since the age of 6. So, and I got spotted when I was 14. So that was a team called Wigmore, and we had a decent setup there. We had a good crop of players. So scouts did come and watch our games on quite a regular basis, to be fair.
Mm-hmm. So what age did you say you signed for Leeds? When did that come about?
Yeah, I was 14 when I signed for Leeds. It was at the second time of asking though. After my first trial, they told me to go back and work on a few different things, which I did.
Okay.
And then it was my speed that they weren't happy with, which is ironic because that was my main attribute further down the line. Yes. But that after my first trial, they told me to go and work on my speed. And luckily for me, there's a lad called Mark Lewis Francis who ran for Great Britain, lived a couple of doors away from me. So I started going training with him and never looked back from there, really.
So how old were you when you had your first trial?
Yeah, I was 14.
So 14 when you had the first one, and then you were signed on the second trial, yeah?
Yeah, it was about 3 or 4 months later, I believe.
Okay. So
yeah.
Just back then, when you were told that was, that's one of the kind of things you need to work on. Obviously, they weren't going to sign you at that particular point. When you are 14, what's kind of going through your head at the time when you're told that these are the things you need to do? Are you just determined to get it done? Is there a bit of, are you disappointed? What were you feeling back then?
Do you know, I was heartbroken, to be fair, because the way they'd done it, it was horrible. So you just go and play in a trial game there was probably about 30 trialists there each time. And then all they'd do is you have your shower and then go into this room and they'd just read a list of players out that they wanted to come back. And if your name weren't on that list, it was just, that was it.
It's like X Factor.
yeah.
It's like that. Oh, what's the Adam Sandler film? I can't remember what it's called now. Is it? You know where they're reading out the hockey list and he's not on. There's like him and one other person left, and they're just like, oh, better luck next year.
Yeah. That's exactly.
It sounds like that kind of moment.
Yeah. So it worked great, but football was my life anyway. So whatever they told me at the time, I was going to go back and work regardless, you know.
Mm. So then, when you've had that training interim period, that 3 or 4 months where you've kind of just worked on that particular part, during that second trial, what was that like? Were you just, because you've had the first one, did it make things easier? Were you nervous? What was going through your head at the time?
Yeah, the second time round was a whole lot easier. I was a lot more relaxed, obviously, because I knew what the process was. This was, it was like my first time ever, and it was such a big club at the time. It was a massive club. So, and my dad's always been a Leeds fan since he come over to England. So I really wanted to just do it for him and make him proud. So I think I went with a totally different head on my shoulders. I was so relaxed and confident, and I think that showed in my performance in the trial. To be fair, because they took me on pretty quickly.
Okay. So where did you when you were in a game scenario, whereabouts did they play you? Did they kind of like mix you around? Do they move you all around the pitch, or do they kind of pinpoint you into one place?
They put me in either wing either wing on both trials. They put me either wing. I was a centre midfielder.
Right.
But I just even when I got signed, I never really got the opportunity to play there. So it was a bit frustrating, but I suppose it worked out okay for me in the end.
Right. Okay. So you're then signed up to, I guess, what would probably be YT back then. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you kind of go through the ranks at that point up into a certain age, etc. What was it like being in an academy system, going from playing at your level that you were up until the age of 14 to then all of a sudden you've got the trial, you've been successful, and now you're in the academy setup? How was that? Were you traveling back and forth at the time? What was the situation there?
My mum and dad was taking me up to Leeds 3 times a week.
Wow.
Yeah, so it must. I mean, that my mum and dad got 7 kids, so.
Crikey.
Yeah, so I've only got 1, and I struggle with just 1 and doing what. So how they fitted it in is beyond me. So I signed at the back end of under 15s, and then they asked me if I wanted to move up and finish my school in there, to sort of to take the pressure off my parents. And to be fair, I jumped at it. I was like, yeah, I want to do it straight away. So I finished my schooling off up there in year 11, and then it sort of made the transition from schoolboy to YTS a lot easier. It was easy for me because I've been living up there anyway, where a lot of the boys are coming into the YTS scheme fresh from school. Do you know, from wherever they resided?
So had you moved into some sort of digs or whatever and moved away from home then?
Yeah, I moved
at a very young age.
Yeah, when I was 15, I moved up there. When I was 15, I moved into digs in Leeds with a couple named Kath and Trev. They've both passed away now, God bless his soul. But yeah, what a family they were. They was brilliant with us, with the schoolboys, and really looked after us. So again, that helped the transition for me from moving from West Brom to Leeds a whole lot easier. So
my sort of question I was going to lead on to was a lot of who you become is based on what happened when you were younger, and how important were the people that were sort of looking after you at that age to your football development, because they obviously had quite a big responsibility on their shoulder. taking you in and sorting you out as you finished your education and stuff?
Yeah, that was massive. You know, that that was that good to me, that because what you had to do is after your 2 years at Thorpe Arch, where the training ground, all the youth team lads used to stay there. After my 2 years, I asked them if I could move back there when I turned pro, because I enjoyed it that much. So when I turned pro, I moved back there, and they looked after me again. You know, just life was easy. Your food was cooked. You know, if I don't do it often, but if you don't make your bed in the morning because you was in a bit of a rush, when you come back, your room was all nice and clean. You know, it was great. It was good.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of looking through the history of Leeds prior to you coming on the show, and obviously this is at the point where Leeds are at their, you know, they're close to matching what they did in the 80s, in 70s and 80s, in terms of being right up there at the top of the league. So you coming through the academy at that particular point, you had, I would have thought, before you signed your first contract, 2 or 3 years maybe at the youth team level. Was that right?
What I was playing for the youth team, you mean?
Yeah. So before you signed your first contract, you'd had about 2 years. Is that right?
No, I actually played for the reserves after my first game for the under-17s.
Right.
Yeah, because I said this to somebody else. What used to happen was the reserves would train on a Saturday, whilst we were playing our match. And at the first game of the season, the Resis had finished training, and the manager, Steve Beagle, just come and watch the second half of our game. We was 2-0 down at half time, having an absolute stinker. And luckily for us, we turned the screw second half, and I played decent, you know. And next thing I know, I went in on the Monday and I was training with the reserves. That was after the first game, so I went into the reserves, and then there was a few injuries, and then pulled back out, and then back in and back out. So I was playing with like the pros pretty early.
Right. How did that help your development then, in terms of who you were as a player? Do you think that maybe hampered you? Do you think, like, you know, looking back, maybe you should have had like a year at the youth level and then gone into it? Just because I'm thinking from a physicality perspective, it must have been a massive step up for you.
Yeah, it was, but I was always quite cute and clever. I don't like to stay by defenders. Do you know what I mean? I'd always run off the back of them. So you know, the only bit I did struggle with was holding the ball up when it's played into feet, and you've got a big fucking, excuse me, friend, sorry, sorry, a big grizzly bear coming through the back here. You know, it was hard, but.
Yeah,
you know, I sort of made up for that, like with me runs in behind. So
okay, and then let's go on to your first contract. In 2000, the season that Leeds finished third in the table. When you are signing that first contract, who is it that's mainly orchestrating the fact that you are staying on at the club? Is it the first team manager in that case, which would be David O'Leary, or is it the reserves who are kind of recommending that you sign that contract?
Yeah, it was. It would normally be the academy director, to be fair, with the youth team boys, but being the contract rebel what I was at 16, it had to go bypass the reserves and go straight to David O'Leary, and he called my parents in to have a meeting.
Really?
Yeah, because this would probably be a story you won't know, but I was promised, it was a verbal agreement that if you make an appearance for the reserves, your contract will get torn up and we'll give you a new one. Obviously, Steve Bigelow wasn't aware of this when he took me into the reserve team after my first game. So obviously I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna get more dough now. You know what I mean? So like a month had passed, and I kept on playing for the reserves, and there was no mention of this contract. So I had to go and see him, you know, and it just escalated. It escalated until they told me I could leave if someone paid 350 grand
Wow.
Yeah. So he got to that stage before I signed my first pro contract.
And were you aware of any clubs that were interested at the time before you signed that first deal? Did you hear any rumours or anything like that, or did that never kind of materialise?
No, yeah, well, I went to Man City. Contract was there, done and dusted. Met Joe Royle, who was the manager at the time, and at the last minute, parents received a phone call off Leeds. You know, once the court win that I was going to sign, bring him back. We'll give him what he wants. So that's sort of how it transpired. You know.
You're caught between Joe Royle and David O'Leary at an extremely young age.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a bit surreal, to be fair. It was a bit weird, but you know, they obviously thought, you know, there was potential there.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so you know that's why they brought me back and offered me the contract that was promised.
I don't know. It kind of seems like, oh yeah, you can go if you want, but it's kind of like no one will want you. And then as soon as someone wants you, oh okay, right, now let's actually get things sorted out. Let's finalise this because we want to keep you around, sort of thing. That's what it sounds like anyway.
Yeah, well, they knew how much I loved being there, and I think they were banking on the fact that I just wouldn't go.
Okay, right.
One thing that sticks with me right throughout my career, I just want honesty. If people then say to me, if you hit the reserves, you get a new I would been on the wiser. So you know, don't say it if you don't mean it, and then that's it. I would have just been carrying on as normal. You know.
Yeah. So when you are signing that first contract, then I'm not going to go into the monetary side of things, but I want to talk about the actual playing side of it. What is promised to you at that age, when I think you would have been 17 years old at the time? What kind of conversations are there taking place at the time when you are signing that contract about, you know, this is the plan for you to get into the first team, or are they saying we want you to go out on loan? What is David O'Leary saying to you at the time of signing that contract?
At that time, it was just keep doing what you do, keep doing what you do. Excuse me.
Oh, you're right.
Keep doing what you're doing. Keep working hard. Keep improving.
Right.
And you'll get. Jesus, I've got a bit of tickle in my throat now. Jesus. And you will get your chance.
Yeah.
You know, and that's. I mean, I suppose that's all they can say, really. And I suppose they say that to every young player because it's their job too. But when he was saying it to me in our meeting, I actually really believed it. You know, I did believe it. So, you know, that was sort of the way our conversation went.
The only reason I'm asking is because we've had a couple of ex-pros. We've had quite a few ex-pros actually on the show recently. And one of the conversations I had with Paul Hayes when he came on is that he was told when he signed his first contract, if you do well for me during this pre-season and you score goals and you perform to a certain level, you will be in and around the first team. And then that conversation that he then did well during pre-season, and then October he found himself back in with the youth team.
Yeah.
And he then instigated loan moves, etc. So, you know, we've had different conversations where people said, no, you're signing this, but you're going out on loan. So it's just interesting to kind of gauge where you and the club were at the time in terms of what was promised.
Yeah, I mean, there was no promises to be involved in the first team. They just said keep working hard, keep improving. But then there was a couple of clubs that come in for me on loan,
right?
Which the club was keen for me to go and gain some experience, you know.
Right. So because you didn't move to Hull until 2002, which would have been 2 seasons after that. So
was that in David O'Leary's tenure, or was that with Terry Venables?
No, that was with I'm pretty sure it was with O'Leary. Pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Venables took charge in at the end of the 2003 season.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, like, you know, when you say there was interest from clubs to move out on loan, was it just something that you weren't interested in? You were just focused purely on being at Leeds and impressing from home, so to speak?
Yeah, I think my mindset at the time was that ultimately I want to play for Leeds. I don't. That's why I'm here. If I wanted to, but I understand the loan system a lot more now than I did back then. But at the same time, I just think it's easy for clubs to forget about you, and then if somebody at the club starts performing well at a high level while you're out on loan, I think they're going to take more note of that performance rather than performances from players that are out on loan, and that was sort of my line of thinking at the time. So I weren't overly keen to go.
I suppose nowadays it's different when you've got things like loan managers in charge of certain sectors of the club whose primary job is to focus on that, and then they can send over detailed reports of how you're getting on. Whereas I suppose probably back then there wasn't that job in place. You were just like, let's just send you out, see how many games you get, and then we'll assess you when you come back.
Yeah, exactly that. And for me, knowing what I know now, loan moves are so important. They're so important because there's lots of factors that need to be considered. For example, the group of players that are there, what their manager's intentions are for you. There's lots of different factors. I could go on. And a lot of my loan moves, I just don't feel like there was the right place for me to be.
So let's talk about the first loan move then. It's happened, as I said, it's happened maybe 2 seasons after you've signed the contract, or maybe a year and a half. I'm not exactly sure. What made you then decide, actually now is the right time for me to go out on loan? Is it something that the club were pushing at that time, or did you just think, I need to start playing football now? I can't keep doing the reserves and, seeing what's happening there.
Yeah, I think it was more the fact that the reserve team manager was telling me, that it would be good for my development.
Right.
And to be honest, these guys were experienced people. You don't turn your nose up when people like that are speaking to you.
Yeah.
And so I took everything on board, just evaluated everything, and I just decided, I need to do this. I need to do it. And it might make the people at Leeds look on me a bit more favourable too.
Yeah. So when you are going out on these loan spells, have you got a position in mind that you're wanting to play at this point? What would you say would have been your ideal position back?
Yeah. So at this point, I was just a striker, out and out striker. Yeah, and so that's what I've been playing for the best part of 2 years at Leeds. But then when I go on loan, I'm put on the right, and so this is what I'm talking about. You need to know and understand what their intentions are with you.
Yeah.
So my first loan, I'm playing out of position straight away.
How does that genuinely make you feel when you've gone there for a set purpose?
Yeah.
And that first manager that puts you in is saying, "Oh, it's great to have you, but you're playing on the right."
Oh, to be fair, it's a job that I knew I could do. If anything, I was just a bit pissed off that I'd have to track back. You know?
Brilliant.
Love honesty.
Do you know what I mean? I prefer just staying up front and just hassling the centre halves or the fullbacks. But then when you've got fullbacks bombing on every 2 seconds, I'm just like, fucking hell, really? I've got to do it.
I suppose back then it wasn't, when you're playing on a wing, it's a 4-4-2 rather than what it would be today as a 4-3-3 or something like that. It's a lot more defensive work, isn't it?
Oh yeah, you weren't high and wide. You was a banker four in that midfield, mate. You know what I mean? So yeah, your responsibility is the fullback. Disgusting.
Because that move to Hull, I mean, they were back in the old 3rd division back then, which would have been League 2 nowadays. What overall, how do you kind of assess that first loan spell? I know obviously you weren't playing in your ideal position, but what did you take back to Leeds from that first loan move?
I think it was just good to be playing competitive football because sometimes, don't get me wrong, the reserve league was really high level when I look back. But there's just sometimes there's that that tendency to just take things a little bit easy. You ain't got players that are playing to pay the mortgage and things like that. So it was the dynamic's totally different. And I suppose obviously the physicality side, I got used to that more. You know, horrible defenders, mate, just absolutely going through you. And do you know what I mean? It was. But it was good. I enjoyed it, and it was a great experience. And they had some quality players, to be fair, as well. Hull at the time, some really good players, and some of them went through right from that league to the to the Premier League. Ian Ashby was the skipper when I was there, and he's seen them through right to the Premier League.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So they had some good players. So I think as young professionals, you think you're going to go to these clubs and it's going to be easy. Fuck me, was I wrong? Jesus, it was tough. It was tough. But you know what? I loved every minute of it. I really did.
Do you think that, like, looking back, it kind of gave your head a bit of a wobble as to what football really would end up being like, compared to what you'd been used to at youth team? As soon as those challenges and stuff start flying.
If I'm going to be totally honest, oh God, I'm going to say like a right prat here. If I'm going to be totally honest, I just never thought that was my level. So I didn't envisage myself playing at that level at all. I just thought, right, I'll go here, play a few games, try and score a few goals, and then go back to Leeds. You know what I mean? That was all I thought about, really. So yeah.
So actually, then one final thing on Hull, before we move on to the other kind of loan spells. That first goal that you scored at competitive football, can you describe that moment? What's that like as a youngster when you're learning your trade in football?
Oh God, it was amazing because I was on the bench the first game that the first game I was there. We was playing Bristol Rovers away, and I think we was one down, and I think we had a man sent off, and I was put on, and I just thought, fucking hell, man, this is just my luck. I need to come here and sort of hit the ground running. I'm coming on. We've got 10 men. It's just never going to happen. And there was a lad called Stuart Elliott there who was brilliant. Played for Northern Ireland and a very good player. And he'd just gone down the wing and he just cut a ball back, and I made a late run in and slotted it. And that feeling, my dad and my brother was there, and it was unreal. Yeah, it was brilliant. It's difficult to sort of put into words, to be honest.
No, I can imagine. Like, obviously, it would have been a full stadium at the time, and massive crowd and stuff like that. I just, from somebody who's obviously never played the game at that anywhere near that level, I can't imagine that feeling. Like, scoring a goal, just to have that first taste of it must have been an amazing thrill.
Yeah, it was. And you know what? To be fair, I was lucky to still be on the pitch. I watched this game not so long because I've still got the game on DVD. I watched it not so long back, and I think about 2 or 3 minutes before I scored that goal, I go flying into a tackle because again I was like, do you know what? These experienced guys are going to try and mug me off here. I'm going to put a tackle in. That was actually what I was thinking. So I've gone in, launched into this tackle. He was so horrendous. How I didn't get a red is beyond me. But yeah, I got the yellow, and luckily enough, I managed to notch as well. So yeah, again, it was amazing, and what a way to start your career, really.
Definitely. Later on in that season, though, you come back and you make your debut for Leeds.
Yeah.
Going through the system, you've talked about the whole time on this podcast up to this point about how playing for Leeds was like, it was, that is what you wanted to do. That's the reason why you stayed there in the reserves as long as you did, to make that impression. When you finally step onto that pitch, your name's called out. Again, talk us through that moment of just stepping onto the pitch.
I think, do you know what? Normally, I would have been really nervous, but we were 6-1 up at Charlton. So I thought do you know what? There's no pressure on me here. I'm just going to go and enjoy myself and try and get on the score sheet.
Yeah.
You know, I got as soon as I went on though, it was I think do you remember Richard Rufus, big black bald dude?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I learnt this little technique off Smithy where when you're backing into players, he just used to put his arm round his own back and hold on to the defender's shirt. And I thought, you know what? I like that. I'm going to try using that. So as soon as I've gone on, it's our throw-in, and I'm backing into Richard Rufus, and I've got hold of his shirt. And the next thing I know, he's just fucking uppercutted my ribs, mate. And I'm just like, you know, I turned round and I looked at the size of his fist. I don't sign up for this. I don't want that, mate. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean, it was great. I loved it, and you know, they made me have a little sing song because I made my debut on the way back, and you know, just all added to the fun.
So, you know, you've had that. I suppose you've had that first loan spell. You've come back to Leeds. You made your debut. You've come offered as a sub. When you're approaching the end of that season, how are you feeling about things? Are you thinking now is the time for me to then, you know, I can now stay here now that I've had that one loan spell, or you know, what are you kind of feeling?
After I made my debut, I continued to make a few appearances off the bench, and then I started the last game against Villa, Ellen Road, and you know, I think I'm not sure who made the call, but I know my agent and Peter Reid had the conversation about sorting out a new deal when we return.
Right.
So obviously this is music to my ears. I'm like, fucking hell. I've never earned a massive amount, but I was on a decent amount of money for my age.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking if this is going to get bumped up, I'm well away here. I was in Vegas, do you know what I mean? Doing all sorts in the summer. Think I'll go back to this new contract. So yeah, it was good times for me, and you know, I could sort of let my hair down a little bit after that season, and you know, all the hard work to, you know, well, since I was a baby really, it finally paid off. And if I'm going to be honest, I think it was deserved. I think it was deserved on base on, if you basing it on performance level and things like that, and just my overall attitude, you know.
Yeah. So at the end of that season, this is where Terry Venables had taken over from David O'Leary. So, did you have many conversations with him? You know, towards the end of that season, like during the summer, about again what kind of plan they've got for you, or you know, how does that happen? Is because we talked to different players and different managers working in different ways, etc. So did he have a clear plan for you?
Terry Venables was the first manager to include me in a squad,
right?
But he didn't tell me. It was Eddie Gray that told me.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. So I was training with the first team at the time, and Terry Venables he'd only been on in about 2 or 3 weeks, I think. And I was doing okay. Well, I was doing quite well in training, and I think there was one particular incident that he really enjoyed, and it was after that training session where there was a game on the night. There was a game on the night, yeah, cup game against Gillingham, I think it was, and I was just playing basketball in the gym. I was, and then Eddie Gray just come and called me and give me a shout. So Terry Venables it weren't him that, although it was his decision, he didn't come and speak to me about it, you know, which I don't mind. I would have preferred it if he would have come and told me, you know, because he was the manager. But, you know, like you say, everybody's got their own approach to things, and that was his way of dealing with that situation.
Yeah, definitely. So when you are training in and around the first team, at that time, who was kind of like, did you have anybody that was your mentor? Did you have anybody like that at the time that you kind of looked up to, teamed up with, etc.?
I used to look up to Smithy because he was a striker and he was a young lad that had made his way through. He was an arrogant little sod, but as a player, I just really rated him. So yeah, he was the one that I probably looked up to. more than others. Although like your Harry Kewells and people like that, in my opinion, had a lot more ability. Just the way Smithy found his way into the first team setup was what I wanted to try and emulate. So, he was the one. I think the one that probably helped me the most was Michael Dewberry. He probably doesn't even know this, but he just used to do really little subtle things like just give me little bits of guidance. For example, one day in training, he was marking me and he actually told me what I should be doing or what could potentially help me. You know, so it was all little things like that. But he used to do quite a lot. So as far as a mentor is concerned, I'd probably say Dewberry.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the time that you were at Leeds, they had some big players.
Massive.
Yeah. I mean, the squad was a joke.
Yeah.
Absolute joke. At one time, and I was looking at the people in front of me because that's what you have to do, right? If you want to get in the first team, you've got to look who's ahead of you. In the pecking order. So one day after training, I'm going back in and I'm watching the first team train. And you've got Harry Kewell, Smith, Viduka, Robbie Keane, Fowler. And I just think, I'm not going to get in. I'm not going to get anywhere near this, you know. I'm not going to get in.
For that era, that list of strikers is just unreal.
That's mental, isn't it?
It's absolutely unreal.
Yeah, so Michael Bridges as well. Sorry, I forgot him. So
hell of a player.
I was only about 12, thank you. So it was all right.
So, I mean, during this point, Leeds are gradually on a bit of a decline as a club. Obviously, there's the finances, which took a major hit. Everyone knows about that at the time. The following season was the year that Leeds got relegated, and you had a couple of loan spells away from the club. Again, was it just, as you just mentioned a moment ago, was it looking at the pecking order and just thinking, I need to go out and play as much as I possibly can now?
Not really.
No,
not really. I mean, I think during this time, even though I went on loan a couple of times, I was top goal scorer for the reserves, sort of 2 years on the bounce, even with the loan spell. So I just really wanted to just stay there and keep fighting and fighting and fighting.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the way I was brought up. If you want something, fight for it.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was always in my mind. If you want to play here, you're gonna have to stay here and fight for it. So that was my line of thinking, you know, at the time.
So the loans were more instigated by the club, or was it the clubs that you went to being interested in Leeds just going, yeah, actually that would make sense for him to go there?
Yeah. There was a couple of clubs that the club was really insisting on me going to. But okay. I was just looking at it and I was thinking, like that, I don't want to do that. Do you know what I mean? And I think if you're thinking like that, it's gonna be an uphill struggle because you're not going there in the right frame of mind.
Yeah,
you know, if you've got to be confident with what you're doing, and I don't think I was with a lot of my loans.
Does is there anybody at the time who's kind of like putting their arm around you and just going, look, you know, this would be really good for your development, or do you again back then is it just kind of, no, this club's coming for you, you're going there?
Yeah. At the time, you know, the thing is in football they expect the kids to be well beyond their years. You know, and that's just the way the football industry is. Whether it's changed now, I don't know. But when I was involved, it was, you know, you're fucking in this industry, you deal with it, you deal with all the shit, you know. Yeah. And so they sort of there was nobody there to sort of put an arm around me or give me that little bit of love that I probably's needed.
Yeah. Because that is kind of what I'm kind of gauging throughout the conversation here. It's you've got one mindset. This is where you want to be. It's quite clear to hear your love for the club. Yeah. And yet it's very, very clear that there's a completely different way of thinking from what you're thinking to what the club are thinking.
Well, you never really know. You never really know because again at the top, if they're wanting me to go out on loan at this point, where there was in the table and things like that, am I ever really going to get a chance with these people in charge?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you get shoved out on loan because they want to get shot of you. Do you know what I mean? They want rid of you. So, there's a lot of things running through my head at that point. And like you says, my love was always Leeds. So for me, any loan club that I always give 100% when I'm on the pitch for sure.
Yeah.
But when you're on heads, not on it, you're never going to perform to your potential.
Yeah.
I suppose, does that lead into the fact that there was a few manager changes during that period?
Yeah.
Do you think that change them maybe meant that you needed to be away from things so that they could just concentrate on what they really wanted? Does that make sense?
Well, there was, when Peter Reid came in, there was Peter Reid. I got called into the office, and this was only a week or two with Peter Reid being in charge. And I got called into the office, and they said, I think it was Crewe coming on loan,
right?
And there was a first division club at the side, or at the time, or championship. What would be the championship now?
Yeah.
So for me, that for me was a totally different proposition to ones that I'd had previously.
Yeah.
But I still thought, do you know what? Fuck off, man. So there was Peter Reid, Eddie Gray, Roy Aitken, and possibly one more. And during the last year or so, I had a couple of injuries, and I weren't performing great. So right. I just said to them, it was quite overwhelming being in an office with them for. But I said, look, guys, I said, I've had a fucking shit season. I said, I don't want to go out on loan. I don't want to do it. And I just cut the conversation dead.
Right.
And the next thing I know, Peter Reid was bringing me into the first team's equation, and I think that he really appreciated how fucking forceful I was with my opinion and how I carried myself, because they don't look, if you're going to pussyfoot around and be a little baby, they don't want to know.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, you've got to be a man straight away, whether you're 15, 16, And I think Peter Reid really liked, that about me.
Yeah. A determined attitude to say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm staying put.
Because look, I think probably the majority of kids would have said, okay, I'll go, and I just think, that play. I definitely think that conversation with us four played in my favour. Yeah,
definitely. Then obviously Leeds at the end of the 2003-4 season, Leeds are then relegated. Due to, again, the finances of the club played a massive factor. When you're in what is now the Championship and League and Division 1, what are you thinking at the time? Again, is this now going to be your opportunity to play for Leeds on a regular, consistent basis? Is that what you're thinking? I'm going to use this to my advantage. Although the club are going through a difficult time, now is my opportunity to really show what I'm capable of.
Yeah, I mean, I was away on holiday in the summer at the time, but with a couple of the other youth team lads that were in and around the first team, and we had obviously had the conversation. And was like, this is going to be it, lads. Next season's it's going to be our time. We've got to take this opportunity. Myself, a lad called Jamie McMaster, Fraser Richardson, and Sean Alloway, a goalkeeper that they'd bought from Reading for, I think, best part of £1 million, I think.
Right.
So we was like, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
Little did we know fucking Kevin Blackwell was going to get the job. Oh, Lord Jesus. We was in our hotel room, and we had Sky Sports News, and when it comes across the bottom of the screen,
yeah,
Mate, I've never fucking drank so much in my life. I thought I can't handle this. I'm getting pissed.
What was it about him? Before you've even had a conversation with him, you see that news flash up. Why is that your instant reaction? If you don't mind me asking, because I need to know. I need to know the back history. The history on this.
Well, I didn't know at the time. Well, Kevin Blackwell initially came in as a coach.
Yeah.
And the first pre-season, I went in about a week early to try and get. Look, fitness was never. I was never great at fitness. It was just something that I had to really work. So I went in early, a week early, to start, try and get a bit of a head start. And this geezer, I didn't know who he was. I didn't have a clue who he was. This geezer, who turned out to be Kevin Blackwell, I was going out to do some running on the pitch, and he goes, "All right," and I went, "Yeah, you okay?" And he goes, I goes to him, "I've tried to get a ball, but they won't give me one." And he turned around and goes, "Yeah, that's because they fucking spent about $2,000 on balls last season," like that. And I was like, "Fucking hell, all right." I thought this was a football club. Do you know what I mean? Fuck me. And so that was it. But little did I know. Like I say, I didn't have a clue who he was. He was part of Sheffield United's academy, and to be fair, when we used to play them, we used to beat them quite easily, and we was probably a little bit loud. We weren't overly gracious when we won. So and he remembered me and a couple of the other lads from the games we played against Sheffield United academy. So his mind's already made up. Yeah, his mind's already made up. And as soon as I'd done a bit of digging and tried to understand why he was like that, just, yeah.
Do you think that set you off straight away, almost writing off your time with him?
Well, do you know what? I did and I didn't, because I thought to myself, well, his hands forced here. I've done too well for him not to include me.
Yeah.
But fuck yeah.
And I suppose the situation of the club as well, that they've now got to start, if they really want to try and clear out as much as they can in terms of getting money in and selling their assets, etc.
Yeah.
Now is your opportunity, really, isn't it? This is the point where the club has got to turn around and say, look, you bided your time. Now we're going to give you an opportunity to show what you're capable of. So really, he should have been starting to play the likes of you and, as you said, Richardson, etc.
Yeah. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I can't be too bitter, because a lot of the lads did get their opportunity, but obviously they were lads that he never had any sort of preconceived opinions on, you know?
Yeah.
So I think looking back, it was never going to happen, but I just thought that his hand was forced, you know. But yeah, you live and you learn, I suppose. I got that one wrong.
With that, just going a bit behind it, because your football development's still important. You've still been young at that point. Yeah. Do you think your football development stalled at that time as well, because of what he maybe thought of you and maybe your relationship?
Well, yeah, because for example, my confidence, after a bit, my confidence just got drained out of me. For example, like we was doing finishing once, and my first two shots, I popped them in the bottom corner, and then on my third one, I built up a bit of confidence, and I thought, right, I'm going for fucking top bin here, you know. And honestly, mate, I couldn't have hit it any further wide if I tried. and the geezer just started fucking laughing at me. And I thought, you know what? You're a prick, man. Honestly, I just wanted to knock him out. I really did just want to knock him out. And it did have an impact on my performance. And, you know, whereas I just thought a proper manager, at that point gets the best out of someone like me. Do you know what I mean? And we was a good option. I was a good option, like some of the other lads that he binned off. We was a good option at that time.
Yeah.
But he still had a cracking budget, I think, for the league. And he went in a different direction. And I ain't got no problems with it now. I'm over that.
Yeah, because I mean, during that season, it then forces you to go back out on loan again, doesn't it? Because you had your loan spell at Doncaster and also at Barnsley, and you've already spoken throughout your time at Leeds. The loan thing was not something you wanted to do. So again, are you then going into those loan spells with the same mindset as what you had with the previous ones of, I just don't want to do this, I want to be playing for Leeds? Or are you just thinking, I need to get far away from this bloke and the current situation as I possibly can?
No, it was never that. It was never, even though he was in charge, I think in the back of my mind, I was thinking, this guy's a crap manager. He ain't going to last long.
Right.
Yeah. So I was trying to outstay him, probably more than anything. Because, it sounds really bitter, but the guy was the least qualified out of all the managers I had at Leeds. And he was the only one that didn't rate me.
No, well, if you look back at the history of the managers that you've been under, that is a fair statement. That is a fair statement.
Your history is mental.
That's what I'm saying. Like David O'Leary, if he didn't have access to the resources he did have, I probably would have got in a little bit earlier there. Terry Venables, Eddie Gray, who else was there? Peter Reid, who gave him they all rated me as a player. You know, and then I've got this geezer coming in who's just, but that's life. That's life.
So at the end of that season, then Leeds have not. They've done average in the Championship. They've finished 14th that season, where you've had a couple of loan spells out. But during that summer was when you left Leeds to sign for Darlington. Yeah. So again, you're talking about wanting to kind of outstay him. Did the club, did he put you on the transfer list, for example? Kind of what happened there in terms of then leaving the club, or was your contract expiring? How did that all come about?
Yeah, I was in the final year of my contract, and I think there was about probably 3 months left of the season.
Right.
And I think I had a phone call off. I can't recall who the phone call was off, but they says, have you seen the paper, Si? And I was like, no. And I went and got the local Yorkshire Evening Post, and there was a big heading saying, I think it was something along the lines of surplus to requirements. And then there was a retain list and a release list, and I was under the release list. That was the first there'd been no conversation.
You found it on the paper because someone else had seen it?
Yeah. That's how I found out that I was being let go. Yeah. So it was a tough look. I knew there was never going to be a contract offer. I'd been looking, but just show a bit of fucking respect. Do you know what I mean? Just show a bit of respect.
Find out it comes to an end.
Yeah. After all the time, bear in mind, I've been there, lived up there since the age of 14. And that's the way I get told.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
It was a difficult one, but like I says, I'm over all that now.
So when you are, when that is announced, or not announced, but when you find out about that, you then find you're becoming a free agent. Again, where's your head at that particular point? What are you then thinking in terms of where you've been and where you've kind of moved to? Are you, how are you kind of feeling in that particular moment that the Leeds chapter of your career is finishing?
Yeah, I was gutted. I was gutted. Like I said, I've been there since I was 14 or 15, and it was a big part of my life. Some really important years there, and so it weren't great for me at the time, and sort of. I just had to deal with it as well as I possibly could and try and move on from it.
So,
go on, sorry.
No. I was just going to say, so, when you are a free agent, what kind of what offers are on the table at the time? Are you going to trials to various various clubs? How does that process work out?
Yeah, so it's just a case of sort of your agent sort of telling you about a little bit and seeing if there's any interest from there.
Right.
Probably. I mean, this was. Excuse me. This was the most difficult part for me because I'd finished top goal scorer in the reserve league for the past 2 seasons.
Right.
And
yeah.
Look, I've got a lot of time for this guy. I really like him. But my agent at the time only came with Darlington. And, I found out a little bit later that he got a decent few quid for sort of sourcing that move.
So was this at the time where Darlington had their money? Because I know they were splashing out obviously on their new stadium that never kind of really happened. So this was at the point where I suppose they had a bit of money behind them, didn't they?
Yeah, they had a bit. I don't think the chairman, I think his name was Reynolds. He wasn't there,
right?
But they still had a decent budget for players.
Yeah,
So that I think probably was more of a financial move rather than a move that I really wanted.
So how did you feel about going from Leeds to League Two Darlington? Like, again, kind of, from a mental perspective, what is that like? Because
it was gutted. I was gutted. Because I look, that you get some very good players at League Two. Don't get me wrong, but I was way beyond that level at the time. At the time, I was way beyond it, and I just don't believe that there was, out of however many clubs there is in England, that only Darlington was the ones willing to take me after on the back of the 2 seasons I'd had. I don't think my reputation helped, because when you look at the amount of loan moves I've had leading up to this point, it paints probably a different picture to what I would have liked.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But then I suppose in the Darlington side that you were in, you were pretty much a mainstay for the time that you were there. Like, putting a fair few appearances for them. Like, so, you would have got constant football around that time. So when you got into it, was it far better than the thought of entering it?
Yes and no. I was happy because I was sort of a permanent fixture in the team.
Mm.
But the way I've been brought up to play, we didn't play like that, and very rarely did we work on team shape or how to break a team down. I think football's evolved a lot since I played, so we never sort of worked on tactics or anything. It was more a case of right, I'm going to get the best players I think I can get to the club and just whack them all together and see what happens.
Right.
There was never really any sort of coaching or, this is forwards attributes. This is how we want to get in. There was nothing like that.
Yeah.
So we was just sort of playing off the cuff, and that's the bit I didn't enjoy.
Yeah. I suppose a bit of that is practically what Football Manager is, really, isn't it? You're just buying the best players you can possibly buy, and then just whatever happens. It sounds very similar to that.
Chuck them on the pitch and hope they win.
It sounds like your Paris. Sounds like your PSG save. Adam,
PSG save. Just literally have the money to buy the world.
So you were there at Darlington for what, 2 seasons? The club finished, I believe, in 8th and 11th place.
Yeah.
As Adam said, you got a fair amount of games under your belt at that point. How are you feeling about your career at the end of that kind of 2-year spell? Are you thinking, right, now is my time to kick on, or what's happening at the time at Darlington?
At the time, I think I'm falling more and more out of love of playing as the days go on.
Yeah.
I'm not enjoying it. I'm not getting the same vibe that I got at Leeds. And it becomes sort of, instead of having a passion for playing and loving the sport, it became a job. You know, I'm now in a position where I've got to fight so I can pay my mortgage and things like that. So there's different pressures on you now. You know, you've either got to perform or you're going to be struggling to pay your mortgage here, kid. You know.
Yeah. So you've gone from a dream of playing football to sudden reality very very quickly.
Yeah, and I mentioned to you a little bit earlier about Michael Dewberry being my mentor. He pre-warned me about this situation. He says just be careful. So he says he says be careful because if you move on from here, people offer you peanuts, and that's just the way it works. And so, you know, again, it was all little things like that he helped me with. So I was aware of the situation and I knew what it was. But again, it was just difficult to take.
Yeah, and I read a very brief story that you had a move to Wycombe Wanderers that never kind of happened during that time. Did that kind of feed into the fact that you just weren't enjoying it when that kind of move then falls apart? Does that then have like another knock-on effect of just what am I doing this for when that doesn't happen?
Yeah. I mean that situation there, it was really difficult because a lot of people probably don't know this, but the reason I didn't sign was because I failed a medical. Also, Wycombe said, yeah. So my agent and the manager of Darlington and Wycombe, they all spoke and says you can't let that out because he won't get another club if people know he's failed a medical. And so we sort of kept that between ourselves, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it weren't great because like you say, I was just thinking that it's, you know, I'm never going to climb back up. Wycombe would have been a great move for me at the time, you know, and it was good money and stuff like that. And you know, I just thought I'm just fighting a losing battle here. I might as well just call it a day, sort of thing.
It's horrible to hear in a way that you had that real low point after building your career up at a club you clearly loved so much.
Yeah,
that's quite tough. And I suppose, like you say, if you're hitting your head against a brick wall, it's who did you have around you to try and pick you up and push you on?
Yeah, I mean, this was a really difficult time for me because my parents, who'd always been my support mechanism, was living in Spain at the time, and so I could always Skype them and talk about it. It's not the same as you know, being able to go down and eat some of your mum's cooking, and do you know what I mean? It was hard, so I had to sort of turn my attentions to my older brothers and my little brother, you know, because he played as well, and sort of tried to confide in them.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's not the same from from going to your parents who have got the experience and better guidance. I suppose is probably the best way to look at it, really.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's probably a lot of people can relate to that at the moment, can't they? Where we are so detached from the people that we used to have regular contact with, and like you said, it's not the same as having a video chat or having a phone call with somebody, is it? As actually sitting in front of that person and talking, in that way.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I said to a friend the other day, sadly a father passed away, and I just says to her, you take that time with your loved ones for granted sometimes, and when it's sort of taken away from you, you do realise how much sort of you depend on certain people in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That time at Darlington comes to an end. I believe you become a free agent at the end of that season. Is that right? Because you then joined Hereford in the early part of August.
Yeah. I was a free agent. I was training with Bradford during pre-season with
Yep.
Stuart McCall was there.
What a legend.
Yeah, he's not too keen on me. Well, he wasn't anyway.
Maybe not.
Yeah, no, I mean he was great because obviously I had nowhere to go at this point to keep on top of my fitness. So
Right.
I had a good friend there that I lived with at Darlington. Was at Darlington together called Matt Clark.
Yeah.
He'd moved to Bradford a year into my stint at Darlington. And I said to him, Clark, you just ask your gaffer if I can come. And he was great with me. To be fair, he got me the fittest I'd ever been. And at the 11th hour, Hereford, John Truitt gave me a call from Hereford. So I looked at it and I thought, do you know what? That's probably a little bit closer to the Midlands. I'm going to have a look at that. So,
Yeah.
Bradford had actually offered me something at this point.
Oh,
But
had they?
Yeah. He'd offered me something. I just said to him, look, I really appreciate what you've done, but I am going to go and have a look at what Hereford are doing and what they've got to say.
Yeah.
So I went down and started trialling at Hereford then.
Was it more of a first team opportunity that kind of appealed to you for Hereford rather than Bradford? Were they prepared to give you more game time?
No, there's never any there's never any guarantees like that. If anything, I was probably more. I was probably had more of a chance of playing at Bradford at the time. But I think I went to Hereford because it was the opportunity for me to move back home, which I'd been longing for, really.
Yeah. So you moved to Hereford. You're in the same division as what you've been at Darlington. How do you kind of reflect on your time there? Because there's a promotion and a relegation the following season in amongst that time.
And again, you're a mainstay in the side.
Yeah, I mean, the first probably 4 months at Hereford was the most frustrating time in my career. Very rarely was I even in the 16, never mind on playing. But we had this. I'd actually dropped deeper at this point now. I'd started playing midfield.
Okay.
And we had this little player called Lionel Ainsworth. Jesus Christ, I've never seen anything so quick in my life. And he was on absolute fire. He scored 2 hat-tricks against decent opposition, and he was just firing. And I mean, he got a move to Watford. Which then opened up the space for me to sort of take the reins.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why were you not being included in the 16 at all? Do you put that down to anything? Was it just bedding in? Or?
No. I think the gaffers, Graham Turner had a funny way of working. Do you know what? Look, he was brilliant. The way he managed things was amazing, and I'm definitely going to take a leaf or two out of his book. But he just couldn't change anything, because I don't think throughout that whole promotion season, I don't think Hereford left top 4 or 5 spot. So It was real difficult to make any changes when a team's winning almost every week.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, I was training really well and my attitude was really, really good, and it was just a case of biding my time, and when you get in, you've got to grasp that chance, because if you don't, you'll be back out straight away, because that squad was too, for that level, the squad was too good.
Yeah. And when you win promotion to League One as a club, would you say that's probably the highlight, one of the main highlights of your career?
For sure. I mean, that's the only promotion I had during my career. There's many a player that go through their whole career without achieving that.
Yeah.
I think the added bonus for that was that we was favourites to be relegated before the season started. It was only a small. Well, it still is only a small club. So it just so happened that we had a squad of players that really, really gelled and got on with each other.
Yeah.
And if anybody stepped out of line, the whole lot of us would have been on you. And in terms of camaraderie, there's only really in the Champions League and when I went on loan to Sunderland that sort of can compete we had at Hereford.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing. But the following season, obviously, the club then don't do hugely well at all. Obviously, finishing bottom of the league. Your contract isn't renewed. You leave by mutual consent from what I can see on here. What are you thinking at the time when you've had that seat, you've been promoted, you're in League One, maybe things are starting to take a bit of a turn for the on the upwards turn, and then the club just doesn't work, and then you then leave the club. How are you coping at that point?
Do you know? I think I was resigned to the fact that my career was coming to an end where professional status is concerned, because I'd sort of had enough of all the, excuse my French, the bullshit.
Right.
I mean, we didn't leave on great terms, but I've seen Graham Turner since, and there's no hard feelings, and we shook hands and we had a good conversation, and he knows he got me on the cheap. He knows he got me on the cheap. So it was hard. It was hard to accept, but I think I got to a stage where I understood the industry a whole lot more, because I'd seen it a whole lot more. I'd seen everything, and I've seen the same things happening to different players. So no longer was I taking things personal. I just thought to myself, this is just the way it is. You could just got to deal with it.
So in those, in those 9 years, it seems like you're on one hell of a mental journey, really, in terms of getting used to the ways you're being treated and the way the game works. It seems like the entire journey through that is a real roller coaster.
Yeah, well, I just think that with especially with sports where you're playing on a weekly basis, the ups and downs you take every single week. Well, it could be days, depending on how you train. You've got to deal with it. One second you're flying high, and then sometimes there's no in between. You're just at rock bottom, and I don't think we're built to be able to handle those swings, if I'm being honest. And that's why a lot of people, a lot of footballers, they'll start off great, and then you just don't hear nothing from them again. The one that stands out for me, I think his name was Michael Johnson for Man City.
Yeah, spoke about him the other day.
Yeah, I did. I mentioned his name the other day. How weird is that? Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. And he was obviously one of the many that just couldn't handle the swings.
Because you were 20, I've just done a quick calculation. You were 26 when you were thinking that.
Yeah.
You still, if you look at the kind of average playing career, you still got a lot of time where you could then, potentially go on. It just seems that you've had constant, knock after knock after knock in football. And as you said, you hear about this a lot at an early age, where maybe somebody gets released from a youth system at the age of 19, and then just doesn't find football and then just completely loses faith with it. Yeah. Yours seems to be later on in your career, that you've had another 9 years, as Adam said, on top of starting off at Leeds, 9 years on, and you're in your mid-20s, and then it's finally hit you. It's fascinating to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, I think what sort of made me come to the decision to come out is I'd had a lot of close shaves. There'd been, especially when I was at Sunderland, Mick McCarthy called me in and says, "Look, I want to do something with you. I want to." That don't sound right, does it? I want to sign you.
Not Mick McCarthy, no.
yeah. He's saying, I want to sign you permanently, and that never come off. And then the Wickham one never come off. And then when we got promoted with when I got promoted with Hereford, Mick McCarthy then was having another sniff when he was at Wolves, and it never got done. And I just thought it's not going to happen. Where I want to play, the level I want to play at, that's probably been and gone now. So what do you want to do? At this point, what do you want to do? And I just thought I've had enough of the pro game.
Right.
So yeah, it was tough.
Because you had a very, very brief spell with Berry after that. Obviously, it did. I think it was on a 3-month deal, and then it just didn't really happen after that. You then moved into non-league football. Was that to rediscover your love of the game? I suppose was my way of thinking. You've had you said there you had enough of the pro side of it. Was non-league a bit of an escape?
Not really. I wasn't doing much. The only reason I started playing for Hull Zone is because a friend of the family was manager there at the time, and he gave me a call and said, "Can you come and help me out?" They was trying to push for the league, and I was like, initially I was like, nah, I can't be arsed with it anymore, mate. And then he called me again, and he offered me decent money for that level, and I was like, oh, I'll take that. And then, and I just started. I played for them for a little bit, for Hull Zone for a little bit.
That was a decent side as well, and I've done some research on that before we came on. You had Stephen Moore there as well, who's knocking goals in.
Stephen's a joke, to be fair. He probably suffered the same fate as myself. I've never spoken to him on it. I grew up with Steph, playing against him and with him in the national level. And I think he played more games than me, but I think at that time he just had enough himself.
Yeah. Right. Seems to be a bit of a common. It seems to be more common as we're exploring into football, doesn't it, Adam? It seems to be more common as we're having these conversations, doesn't it?
Yeah, there are stories out there, and I think there's a lot of stories of realization. The trust thing is one of the ones that really stands out for me from what we've spoken about so far, and the fact that trust was so key to you, but at the end of the day, that was undermined on so many occasions.
Yeah,
it must make it difficult to believe the thing that you dreamed of could actually be worthwhile.
Yeah, because that's not just from a management perspective. That you mentioned about your agent as well, where you met, talking about that move to Darlington. Was there a level of trust there? As Adam says, there is a bit of a theme here.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, that is just the football industry. It's still the same. If anything, it's probably a lot worse now because there's more money involved.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. There's more money involved now, so it's bound to have got a lot worse.
Yeah.
I think the mistake I had, and look, I'm not a saint by any stretch, but I think sometimes when you judge people by your own standards, where the trust and honesty is concerned, I think you're setting yourself up to fail a little bit, and that's where I went wrong.
Right.
That's an interesting reflection. Yeah, especially when everyone's going to be out for themselves in quite a hungry environment. You're well into the money era of football as well when you've turned pro at Leeds. There were clubs with money, clubs without money. And I suppose that would have been reflected all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, just as a person in general, I'm quite a selfless person. I'm bigging myself up here, and I Jesus.
Do you want us to send you the sound bites for it?
No, I am. I'm quite a selfless person. When I was on the pitch, if there's people in better positions than me, I'm passing the ball. But a lot of people in the football industry, it is all about them. It's me, and I think that's something that I could never get on with.
I suppose then that is as you go throughout your career, the realization that becomes very clear. You're at Leeds as a youngster. You're dreaming about playing for Leeds. You're not thinking about that side of the game, and then gradually as you're getting older and older, that starts to become a bit more of a reality, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, definitely. Yeah, it's like, oh, this isn't what I thought it would be. Do you know what I mean?
What I signed up for, yeah.
Yeah.
How did you find people's attitudes in non-league, where it's a more community-based game as opposed to a? I know there is a money element still there, but
yeah, it was a bit of a culture shock, to be fair, because like I can remember like the chairman at Hull Zone at the time had quite a few bob, and this is, for me, it was unheard of at non-league. We stayed over in a hotel when we played Merthyr, maybe. We stayed over in a hotel. And like all the lads was getting pissed night before the game. I was like, oh Lord Jesus, what am I doing? But so it's a little bit different. But do you know what? I embraced it, and you know, I joined in, I think.
Why not?
When in Rome.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose when you've had a whole career regimented to this is what you eat, this is what you drink, this is when you go to bed, this is where you are, this is what you're doing, like to then go into non-league football where those kind of restrictions are then kind of listed, I suppose that is what you would do, wouldn't you? You just kind of get involved in a new lifestyle, really.
Well, exactly that, and you know, I don't want to be sort of looked on as the big serious head, and do you know what I mean? So I just thought for the you know, the good of the team and morale and everything, just get involved here, get stuck in. So
for the good of the team, I'm getting hammered. I think though, like from what you've said, like you've dropped out of the pro game for a hugely legitimate reason, right? If you wanted to carry on being pro, you would have carried on acting like you would have doing those series. What's the point?
Exactly.
You've made your own adult decision for the right reasons.
Yeah.
You don't need to live that pro standard lifestyle anymore, in a way, do you?
Exactly that. Like you say, the reins are took off you there, and for me, I think it was just an absolute relief. It was a relief because no longer did I have the pressure of having to go out and perform and having to train every day to my absolute maximum. And you know, I always tried hard when I played for any of my non-league teams, but in reality, you know, the pressure's nowhere near what it had been previously.
Can I flip that around? Yeah. With everything that you felt, you know, you've just said that you always tried hard when you played for your non-league teams. Now, with the pressure that you felt and the way that you started to get disillusioned with things at different points in your career for, again, quite legitimate reasons, were there ever points where you just stopped trying in your day-to-day as a pro footballer?
No. No, because Graham Turner might beg to differ here, but no, because I was always win at all costs. You know, so whenever I was on the pitch, I want to win. I just want to win, and I'll do everything I can to help the team to win. So never would even in training, I hated losing. It was like I'm such a bad loser. Even with the little one now, when we play Donkey Kong together, I don't let her win. So, you know what I mean? So no, I always had that competitive edge about me. So you know, slacking on my training or my approach to the game was just never an option for me.
I'm only asking because, again, we've spoken to someone else on the podcast, and they've said that when they're most disillusioned, they switched off from it. And they went out knowing they were going to play terribly, and they did. And they put no effort in. They said that it's not even worth being selected. And I guess that sometimes in work, in general, it's quite easy to detach yourself and just say, do you know what, I've had it. I can't be bothered.
Yeah,
but it takes something else about you as a human being to then always go out and put your best face on, despite how you're feeling inside about what you're doing.
Yeah. No, so, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I could be a little shit sometimes if things aren't going my way. But if I was a little shit, there was always reason behind it. I wasn't a little shit for no reason,
Yeah.
you know. But I wouldn't be putting less effort in. If anything, and I hope you can gather what I mean out. I'll probably be a little bit over enthusiastic.
Yeah.
So I'll be going in for challenges what you probably shouldn't be doing in training, you know, that sort of thing. So I'd sprint 50 yards just to put a tackle in. Do you know what I mean? Just those sort of things.
Yeah.
But never would I not work hard. That just wasn't in me.
Yeah. One thing that I kind of see on here, which I'll kind of just want to ask you very quickly about, because we'll get into Twitter questions and then we've got a bit on coaching that we want to kind of talk to you about as well. Did you have a spell with is it Hibernians in Malta?
No. Is that still on my Wikipedia? Do you know?
I don't know if it's on there, but it's just from doing like research on various different bits and pieces. I saw something about that, and I just wanted to ask you, but before we kind of talk mainly about non-league.
Yeah, no, Matt Clark, who I mentioned earlier, who asked the gaffer if I could go and train with them. He went over to Hibernian, and the gaffer there was asking him if he knew of any players. But we got on like a house on fire, me and Matt. So he says, "Yeah, I know." So, but at this point, I wasn't fit. I put on a bit of weight as well. I wasn't fat, but to what footballers should be, I wasn't in shape. And so I went over there, and I think he looked at me and thought, "Fucking hell, there's going to be too much work to do there." So nothing ever materialised there. And to be honest, looking back, I'm pretty glad, because unless I shifted a stone, it would have never worked. I would have never performed to the level they wanted or needed me to.
No, that's absolutely fair enough. So, just very quickly, your time in non-league. How do you kind of assess? What was the best thing about non-league? Let's ask that as a question. What did you find the most pleasing part of it?
I think, well, initially it was how laid back it was, because look, everybody still wants to win, but it's not the be all and end all if you don't.
Yeah.
I suppose it depends on what manager you're playing under. I'm quite a pretty laid back person anyway, so it really suited me. It really suited my personality, and who I am. And I think that was probably the most enjoyable thing for me. I was never interested in league tables or anything like that. I just enjoyed going to training on a Tuesday or a Thursday, it not being sort of as intense as I was used to, and then playing on a Saturday, and it was sort of easy for me.
Yeah, definitely. Your time outside of so after football rather, you are now, I've got on here, you've got your own Universal Soccer Academy.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about it in a minute, but just kind of give people a brief description of what it is that you're doing, what it is that your the main aim of the academy is.
Yeah, so it's a program where the BTEC sport programs, the education side, and it's driven by football. So it's not too dissimilar to what I done when I was at Leeds,
right?
Because I had to do the BTEC sport course myself. So they're getting the best of both worlds, because when students come out, they finish at school. The last thing they want to do is then go on to a college. Well, I say the ones that these sort of programs appeal to. The last thing they want to do is then be sat in a classroom for hours on end. So they get the best of both worlds, really. It's great. I'm really enjoying it.
Definitely. Adam, should we do some Twitter questions?
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else you want to add on before we jump into that.
No, I mean the one thing I was inclined to ask about was in your time in non-league, you're at a few clubs. Did you get an opportunity to play with anyone that progressed through to the pro game, going back the other way, really?
Yeah, there's a couple to be fair. There was Andre Gray, who's
Yes.
Yeah.
where's he at now? Is it Watford?
Yeah,
Andre
he is.
Gray.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Watford, so yeah, he's to be honest. When I first seen Andre, you could tell he had something, but nowhere near the level he's playing now. Like he's just been outrageous, you know. But fair play to him. It just shows what hard work can get you. And the thing that annoys me now is that when I see players doing that, it shows me that it is possible. Whereas when I come into the non-league, I was like, that's it for me. You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah.
But and also Matt Smith as well, who's at Millwall now.
Yeah.
Striker, big striker. That kid, do you know what? That kid is unplayable. If the delivery is right, I spoke to him the other day and I YouTube some of his goals. If the delivery is right, you can't defend against him. He's too big and powerful.
He's
Really
a quality striker, isn't he?
Yeah. Some of his headers, the defenders can't defend against him. It's impossible.
No, he's an absolute unit.
Yeah.
So, Adam, should we do two questions then?
Yeah. So,
I've got quite a few on mine, but I know you're going to have plenty more that you've picked up. These have been coming in all over the place, haven't they?
Yeah, I was going to say they've gone on a few different ones. There's a couple of bits I want to pick up on first of all. Stephen Coldwell replied to you when you said about telling a few stories tonight. And he put on a comment, did I ever annoy you? Hope not. But then the bit that made me laugh was probably screamed at you a few times.
Yeah.
So I'll take it there's some stories there.
Yeah, well, I played with Steve because he when I went on loan to Sunderland, I think he was skipper there. And then he come to Leeds, I think the season after. So I played with him a few times. But he was someone that was never short of words and a really determined player. And to be honest, I understood. I was the same as him. Like I said earlier, for me it was all win at all costs, and he sort of shared that mentality. And you know, he was. I really liked Steve. I really liked the way he held himself. You know.
Who would you say is probably one of the better captains that you've played amongst in the time at the clubs that you've been at?
I love. I don't want to say him, man, because if he listens to this, he's gonna piss me off. But Ben Smith at Hereford, and Carl Broadhurst, they shared the captaincy. Two different characters, but Ben Smith for me, he'd have a go, he'd know when to have a joke, and I think he got the balance spot on. And to be fair, Broady was the same. It's okay, you know, being a baller and a shouter, but you know, you've got to get that balance for your players. What's going to get the best out of him, you know? And I think Smudge done that really well. He had different approaches for different players. So I'd probably go with Ben Smith.
Yeah. I've been asked to ask you about the Platinum Group. I take it that's going to be safe for air.
I'll leave a couple of the stories aside, but no, the Platinum. Do you know who's asked that?
Sean Alloway.
Sean, yeah. So all that was just a group of young players that the PFA identified with a lot of potential and called us a Platinum Group. There was like Leon Britton's, Jermaine Defoe's in there. And they got us a sponsor from Adidas and stuff like that. But Sean used to definitely use it in his favour. So if we was on a night out, for example, he wouldn't mind bringing it up, so to speak.
What one for the ladies, was it?
Yeah, something like that. I think we both were partners at the time, so no.
Oh, dear. So there's an interesting one coming here, like pretty blunt and straight to the point. A guy called Tom. He said, "Who's the best player you've played with at Leeds?" I'm mega interested to know that because there's some absolute ballers in that lot. But then he's also followed it with, "Who was the worst?"
That's tough because obviously anybody who's playing at that level, they're going to be decent, aren't they? They're not going to be crap. But the best player, and I don't want to lose followers, man. Leeds followers, don't unfollow me. But the best player has to be Rio Ferdinand for me. He was unbelievable. He was outrageous, and you could literally just put him anywhere on the pitch and he'll do a decent job for you. But technically and ability-wise for a centre-half, I just thought he was outrageous.
At the time you were there at Leeds, at every turn there was a ridiculous player.
Yeah. I mean, there was so many. When I look back now, there was so many, and I think to myself, bloody hell, like.
Did you realise in the moment how skilled that group were?
No, definitely not. I think as young boys, we all just took it for granted how good these guys were. I mean, there was one player called, I don't know if you recall his name, Stephen McPhail.
Yeah.
Do you remember him?
Yeah.
Jesus, honestly, he was just out of this world. Some of the stuff he could do with the football, I've never seen anything like. He's probably one of the most talented players I've ever seen. Yeah. Definitely, up close and in person.
Do we dare answer the worst player?
You know what?
Is there someone you look at for? How are you here?
No, definitely not. But my answer is, if certain people listen to this, I'll get absolutely hammered because there's two. One's a World Cup winner.
What?
Yeah. So we had a guy called Roque Jr. come.
Oh my God! Yes.
And I don't know if he come for a payday or what, but fucking hell, he couldn't turn by the time someone. It was mad. And the guy's a World Cup winner, but I just don't think he was cut out for like the speed of the Premier League because he just got butchered every time he played. They couldn't play him. I think they just took him out of the team and they just didn't play him. But even like in training and that, I don't know if he just couldn't be arsed and he just come for a payday. I've no idea, but fuck me, he was terrible. And I'm not just saying this because he played my position, but Peter Reid bought this French striker called Cyril Chapuis or something like that.
I remember that name, yeah.
Yeah, and he come and I was looking and I was thinking, have you brought him in to be ahead of me because like what I'm seeing don't justify that? Do you know what I mean? I'm like, he was all right. Don't get me wrong. He had a decent left peg on him, but he weren't as quick. His movement weren't as clever, and he was just average for me.
It's funny that you say both of those players, and obviously they both came in during the season that Leeds got relegated. So I think that's an interesting point to bring up. But
yeah. But I'm only answering that because you've asked me. I wouldn't normally just blurt that out, you know.
Well, we did, and Tom did. So thank you, Tom, for that question. We really appreciate that, mate.
Good laughs there. Then a guy called Chris Taylor's asked us to ask you about the car school and how much money it's cost you on ice creams for being late. I replied with this saying it sounds rather unusual, so we'll definitely ask it.
Yeah, so we had a car school. There was a couple of us that lived in Birmingham and then a few that lived in Worcester. So we all used to, because Worcester's halfway, we'd meet in Worcester and take it in turns driving over to Hereford. And I couldn't at this point my enthusiasm was fading and I couldn't get out of bed, so I was always late. And so that it got to a stage where they just said to me, Jono, if you continue to be late, you're gonna have to pay for ice creams every day. So in a nutshell, I was just shelling out probably 50 quid a week on ice creams for the lads. Like, do you know what I mean? Because I just couldn't get to the meeting point on time, and yeah. So that's all he meant by that. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Adam, I think we've got a few more, haven't we? Or there's a few more statements that I've read rather than actual questions.
Okay.
So what have I got on here? Obviously, you replied to this one, actually. Aaron Roberts, tell them about when I done you regularly at 2-touch last season. That's an interesting one.
No, he's having you on. Look, people don't believe me, but I'm actually undefeated at 2-touch. So everybody always tries to claim it, but I can't let them have it. It's just not anything else. Running, shooting, take that, but not 2-touch. I'm not giving anybody that.
Brilliant. What else we got on it? We've seen you answered this one on there, but Lauren Cullen asked, "Have you ever seen Ballers?" I feel like this is going to be like, so the little statement on there. Have you ever seen Ballers? You haven't seen that one, have you?
No, I think I did reply to that. I haven't seen it. I don't know what it is, to be honest.
No, I've never. I think it's not the film with it's the program with the Rock in, is it?
I have no idea. I'm gonna have a little search for it later. See what it's all about.
So, is there any others on there? We've got just another statement. Probably be easy to say what questions you won't answer, then go on a rant. Let's start with Kevin Blackwell. We've already talked about him. I can't have any more conversations about Kevin Blackwell. And don't forget about his biggest achievement was smashing up with the mighty Hales Owen Town. There you go. That's from Nicholas.
Yeah, I think he might have been the goalkeeper.
Yeah, I've been speaking to him, just grabbing some bits of stuff. What would you say, looking back at your career now, your biggest achievement was personally?
Yeah, I think it has to be playing in the Premier League. You know, it's the pinnacle, and you know, a lot try to achieve it and never get there. So for me, that has to be the highlight, followed closely by the promotion with Hereford. They're and representing my country. But you know, if I have to pick one, it will be playing in the Premier League for sure.
Yeah.
I've got two final questions for myself, and then I'll wrap this part of the interview, the podcast up rather. If you could go back in time and give yourself some advice when you were at your early years of Leeds, what would you say to yourself?
I would say to myself, understand the way a football club's run and structured, because a lot of decisions made on players are based around that, and to never take anything personal.
Okay. Final question. Do you have any regrets about how your career went? Or do you think it's all happened for a reason?
I think it's happened for a reason, because me working with young players now is something that I'm massively passionate about, because I know what it takes to get there, but now I also know what it takes to stay there, and that's what the young players all get from me, you know.
Yeah.
Amazing. That is a brilliant way to sign off.
Great way to look at it. Yeah,
that's absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate you coming on tonight. We've been at this for a long time. It's been an amazing podcast. I honestly, the more we're doing these, the more I'm gaining a massive insight into what the game is, because you hear about the main, you know, the bright lights and the stories and stuff like that, but the more you get into the nitty gritty of it, and it's a fascinating. Yeah. So really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on and sharing your story. It's been incredible.
That's no problem. Thanks for having me, guys. Really enjoyed that.
No,
some tough questions though.
we do our best. Like,
we do our research on this podcast. We try and do our hardest, but yeah, I like to ask the questions that not many people would. I don't mainstream would not dare to ask, or maybe I just like to be honest on these sort of things. Yeah. I'm glad you've shared your story. So really appreciate you coming on. But yeah, if you have enjoyed the video, make sure from a YouTube perspective you hit the thumbs up. Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. If you are listening to this on all of the podcasting platforms that there are available, make sure you leave us a 5-star review and also subscribe as well. That'd be very much appreciated. Thank you very much again. And until next time, as always on the channel, adios.